Hi, welcome to the Generational Wealth podcast. We are here today with the team from Nag Analytics, led by their fund manager, Sandeep Nag. Sandeep has been a Wall Street veteran with more than 17 years of experience in global markets. He's delivered a return of 33% per year over the past decade. We also have Raveen Mehta.
Hi.
And Sancia Fernandez.
Hello.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So, Sandeep, it played out exactly like you said. Everyone else is getting a deal, and China has been singled out. What is the roadmap forward in this tariff saga?
Jesus, I feel like that's the only question I've been answering for the last couple of days. But yeah,
clients have been hounding me with this question day after day.
well, but it's so understandable. It's the need of the hour. And so what's happened so far, like we were expecting it, is that you have China and then the rest of the world. And while the US has gone ahead and given 90 days to everyone else, which is what we were expecting, China has been singled out. China is one of the smartest governments in the world. I'm quite surprised at this misstep, to be honest. But the way we see the next 90 days unfold is we believe that you will have 90 days is given to literally every other country to kind of strike a bilateral deal with the US. And I think that's what's going to play out. You will have Japan on the table with the deal. You will have Korea on the table with the deal. You will have Europe for sure with the deal. India will have a deal. China, I hope, has a deal, but China doesn't tend to take 2 steps forward and take 1 step back. They tend to hold their ground, the dragon that they are. I think what happens is 90 days, everyone has a deal except for China.
So, is recession still on the cards?
Recession is, I think the probability for a recession has gone up perhaps it's probably at a 50% right now. I think recession is a word that is abused. People panic at the mention of a recession. The truth is that every economic cycle has some kind of a recession, and there are 2 or 3 interesting points here. The first is that the number of news articles that have been sent talking about a recession. Funnily enough, people only talk about a recession once the markets are down 30%. So, in my opinion, a recession is already priced in. Okay, so it's already, the stock market's down 30%, prices in a recession for sure. If you have a Louis Vuitton that's down 50%, if you have a Tesla that's down 50%, a recession is priced in. I think there's no doubt about that. The thing that's not priced in is that the Federal Reserve, the American Central Bank, still can cut rates by 100 to 150 basis points. That is enough to avert a recession. All the money that comes in from collecting tariffs, Trump's not going shopping with that. I think Trump is going to pass it back to the people of the US, and they will get some kind of a tax cut. I think if I was President Trump, then I would love to have no tax on all Americans who are making less than $75,000 a year. And I think that's what happens. So
But
recession.
do you really think he's going to do that? It's a very bold thing to do.
I think he will. I think tax cuts are definitely on the cards. I think it's definitely happening. I think over the next 3 to 4 months, as the tariffs start rolling in, especially from China, you will see some kind of a tax cut. He has done it before during COVID.
That was COVID. It was.
Yeah, it was COVID. But the truth is that when tariffs go up, Americans will go through a bit of a turmoil, a bit of a cutback in spending. Their wallets will feel lighter. And the best way to give back to them is a tax cut. So I think that definitely happens.
And it's Donald Trump, right? Trump has always been there for the people of America. People of America love him. If you've seen the speech that was there on the Liberation Day, you should have seen the comments that were there.
Yeah.
People were really happy with him being in power.
I mean, if he does this, hats off to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what Trump would love? Trump would love to be going down as the greatest president of all time in the States. And this tax cut would get him there.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the cards. That's my opinion.
Okay. What's your next move as a fund manager?
Well, as a fund manager, you're always trying to profit from a crisis. And so then if you think about this crisis, and it is a crisis, markets are down 30%, a lot of good companies are down 50%. So this definitely is a crisis. Our move as a fund manager, as a team, is obviously to profit from it. And so then if China, like I was mentioning earlier, is at the wrong end of this, who's at the right end of this, right? So a good example would be China is perhaps making furniture tables at $40 and selling it to, let's say, Bed Bath and Beyond in the US at $100, right? They are the lowest cost manufacturer. They have the largest capacity. And let's say Vietnam makes it at $48, and let's say India makes it at $50, and let's say Indonesia makes it at $60, right? But now with the tariffs, for China, that product is landing in the US customs at $80, right? Because of the additional tariffs, right? So suddenly the number 2, the number 3, the number 4 lowest cost manufacturer gains market share in the US. And so that's what we think will happen. We think there will be certain countries, there will be certain companies within these countries that will take away market share from China and the Chinese companies. And we have a list of these companies, and we've started to invest in them, and that is our next move. Our next move is to find companies that benefit from this crisis.
I think we've always, as a team, we've always believed that whenever there's a crisis, there's an opportunity to invest. And as a team, we always get together, think ahead of the curve, get in and just make the most out of it.
Yeah. So this is our playbook for the next 12 months, maybe more. I mean, I think this tariff war with China could be for a little longer. So our playbook is to look at companies who now become the new supply chain to the US.
Can you give us an example of a stock that's a clear winner?
I think for me, if I had to give my 2 cents, I think it's definitely hands down Tesla. Elon Musk as a new sales head. It's Donald Trump cheering up for him everywhere, right? And so does Elon Musk. It's quite visible.
Elon Musk was dancing at his campaign, was it?
Oh my God. Okay. And what's even wild is that he's laid off these tariffs, right, on countries. There are European car companies, German car companies, Japanese, Korean car companies, and they just lost ground in the US. Okay. Tesla comes in, scooping it up. Okay. A few months ago, Elon Musk was in China selling off his FSD chips.
Yeah.
Chips are basically the brain of the entire car that's there, the EV car that's there, that self-drives on its own. Tesla's just doing it and Trump is pushing for it, right? And who's going to say no to Trump?
Yeah.
Imagine an entire car, all these cars that are there, different bodies with the same brain. I think that's a power play. Don't you
Yeah,
agree?
he could be selling it to the world. And right now, believe it or not, Tesla has only a 4.5% market share as of 2024 in the US auto market, right? As you have additional tariffs on everyone else, Tesla becomes the lowest cost manufacturer. And they can very easily go to 8 or a 9% market share over the next 3 years as Donald Trump's second term unravels. And that number takes the stock up at least 100 or 200% from here. So, no, spot on, I think.
Yeah, and Tesla's not just a car company anymore. Guys,
Sure.
don't forget Optimus robots.
Ooh, the robots. Yeah, I would buy that.
Launching 2025.
Yeah.
Game
But tell me
changer.
this, don't you think Waymo could give a run to FSD?
You have Waymo, you have BYD, you have a couple of other guys, but I think Tesla is just years ahead of everyone else when it comes to autonomous driving technology. I don't think there's any competition. The funny thing is, Tesla's self-driving mode has been there for a couple of years already, but with very, very, very few accidents. If you're, God forbid, one of these new Chinese companies or Waymo with a FSD technology and you have a crash or two, media's going to be all over it. And, before you know it, so as an investor, you won't bet on that technology, right? But the Tesla FSD is proven. So it just makes so much more sense to, invest with that.
Okay. So should everyone invest in the US right now, given the opportunity?
We're crisis investors. We're people who love a crisis. So for us, for sure, it's a great time to buy a US company now.
But you know what? I don't think it's just about right now. I think it's been ever since. You take the example of NASDAQ. Okay, NASDAQ has been outperforming stock indexes across the world for as long as I can think. Okay, and don't just go by what I'm saying. You go check it yourself.
Yeah, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year,
10 years, 15 years.
any time
okay?
frame.
You check any time frame. Okay,
Yeah.
NASDAQ has outperformed any index across the world. Now, to add to that, you know why this happens? Any technology innovation comes straight out of America.
Yeah.
You take the light bulb, you take the internet, the personal computers. And and as new as the AI.
Internet, AI,
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, everything is started. America has been leading innovation in all of technology. So it's a no-brainer that NASDAQ is doing so well. To add on to it, you take on the dollar appreciation. Dollar has been appreciating against most of these currencies, whether you take an Indonesian rupiah, an INR, or Philippines peso. Consistently on year, it's been going up around 4 to 5 to 6%.
Yeah, dollar appreciates by
Yeah.
versus the other
Right.
currency.
So when you take dollar appreciation, couple it with a good investment in Nasdaq, the compounded return is around close to 20-25%.
Sure.
Okay. You take, say, for example, okay, a regular investor puts in 100K at a 25% compounded return is 300K in what, 3 years?
Yeah.
And just not investors.
More than that, 5
okay?
years actually, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just not about a regular investor. You know, parents can benefit out of this thought process. Parents save up a lot of money to send their kids to America to study. Okay. But any of all of this dollar appreciation completely erodes their fund, their savings for the children. Okay. The tuition fees don't change. Okay. But the currency, their currency goes on depreciating. So all the parents get hit. So it's a very, very good idea for parents to go ahead and invest some money for their kids in a dollar product.
So, for example, right, if you're an Indian kid or if you're an Indonesian kid, right, let's say you want to go to US or Australia or UK for your undergrad. Let's just take US as an example, right?
Right.
What would it cost you? About $400,000, let's say, for the undergrad degree. Now, a few years ago, you know, Indonesian rupiah was at 10,000. Today it's at 16,600. The Indian rupee was at 70. Today it's at 87. Right? That completely changes the math. So while the tuition fee at an NYU, for example, remains the same, or maybe a little higher, this depreciation of the local currency just kills whatever little money you have saved up. You know, so a great idea is, let's say you're from India or one of these countries, right? Your daughter or son is in, I don't know, 7th grade. And you take $100,000, you put it in dollars, and you buy Apple, right? By the time they're ready for undergrad, you set on $500,000 without doing anything. That's what investing is, right? Money kind of works for you.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what we've been advocating in all the friends that we have in these countries. We just keep telling them that invest in the dollars.
Speaking of investment, what is your investment philosophy?
We buy monopoly companies in a crisis, and we sit through it up to the peak of the cycle. So we love to buy companies, to elaborate that. We love to buy companies which have a monopoly on 8 billion people globally. Buy it at a time like today when markets are down 30%. There are negative news articles all over the place. You know, and then figure out the 1 or 2 key reasons why these stocks are down. Okay. And then wait for those reasons to get less worse. And as they get less worse, and the media articles are still negative, but they are available at 50 cents to the dollar, that's when we go and buy. And then we have the patience to ride it all the way up to the peak. You know, I'm a student of the market. I've gone back, 70, 80, 100 years, and I've seen that the best time to invest, or let me take a step back. When you're coming out of a crisis, that 1 year period has always been the highest return generating period over a century.
Really?
Yeah. Whenever you buy a stock, let's say you bought it in 2009, right at the bottom of the global financial crisis, right? And you've, let's say, owned it all the way till, let's say, 2018, 2019, right? Maximum returns would have happened in the first 1 to 2 years coming out of the crisis, right? So we love a crisis, and that's our philosophy. A monopoly in a crisis, and then sit on it all the way until the cycle peaks.
Like a Louis Vuitton?
Like Louis Vuitton, like Hermes, like...
Hermes is my favorite.
Yeah.
So who are the biggest winners and losers in this tariff?
So we spoke about the loser. I think well, no country is a loser, to be honest. Like, China's one of the smartest countries in the world. Let me just start by saying that. I love China. I have a lot of friends in China. I'm a big fan of their policies and the way they have conducted themselves for the last 20 years. Let me start with that. But China has taken a misstep, in my opinion. I really hope they correct it. But as things stand, China is definitely on the wrong end of this. Like I was telling you about these tables, right? That China perhaps makes as an example, right? $40, and everyone else is at 48, 52, right? Now, think about this, right? If you're a regular manufacturer of tables in China, you have an order of 10,000 tables from Bed Bath and Beyond. April 15th is the date when the ship sails. So you call up Bed Bath and Beyond and say, hey, my tables are ready to go. And Bed Bath and Beyond says, listen, hold off, man. We can't take it this time around. Until the tariffs is settled, we cannot collect any of those tables. All of a sudden, and this is tables, the furniture is just an example. This is across multiple sectors, right?
Right.
You certainly have Chinese companies sitting on all this inventory they don't know what to do with. So they're calling Germany, hey, do you need a table? Russia, my best friend, do you need a table? India, they say, hey, Pakistan, do you need a table? Anyone needs a table? That's what's happening, right? So what will happen now is they'll start dumping their goods on multiple countries, but the other countries know it's coming, so they will have anti-dumping duties. So that I think China could be in a bit of a trouble here. The winners would be, like I was telling you, the second, third, fourth lowest cost manufacturer, or Vietnam and India, other countries who are, and it depends from sector to sector, who are number 2, number 3, number 4, not as cost efficient as the Chinese were. Suddenly now, because of these heightened duties on China, they are the new lowest cost manufacturers, and they will gain market share. I think some of these countries like India, Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, they're the absolute winners in this. Unless China, at some point tones this down a little bit, strikes a deal with Trump, it is possible. But as of now, I think that's where we are on this equation.
Do you think it's a good time to go shopping to China?
Yeah, let's go buy some. As we get to the airport, you want a table?
Okay, so I've got like a longer two-part. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go
I
ahead.
just said that they welcome us on red carpet.
Yeah. I think it's a good time to go shopping in China.
Okay, so longer question, two-part here. So Sandeep is a fund manager. How is it possible for you guys to cover the entire world? You guys are a global investor. How do you keep on top of which is the best idea out of so many stocks, and how do you do the research?
It's a great question. For us, we have a team in India, we have a team in Singapore, we have a team in New York. We hire very driven people, who love this business. But the truth is, no matter how big your team is and how driven they are, you cannot cover 10,000 companies globally. So we have a niche, right? And our niche is buying global monopolies, right? So we don't look at more than 170 companies. I really don't care what's happening with Bank of America, but I care what's happening with Louis Vuitton, for example. Right? So we have 160, 170 companies that are monopolies or duopolies or companies with a very high market share or companies that could be the next monopoly. We have them on our radar. So our analysts will then come up with ideas, do their numbers, do all kinds of channel checks and come up with a thesis, right? But it's just a thesis. And let's say I'm convinced, right? And then we do a parallel check. So we also have a team of experts. The nature of these experts would be someone who spent 20, 30 years in the chemical industry. Let's pick a chemical, in the caustic soda or nitrochlorobenzene, right? Someone who's been an ex-CFO or a wholesaler or just who's been in the industry for a long time, right? And Sansia here comes up and says, Sandeep, we must buy this caustic soda company. I say, why? Because caustic soda has fallen from just a number, from $100 per ton to $60 per ton, and it can't go any lower. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but like, how do we figure this out? Because we both have a useless degree called the MBA, right? We don't know anything about engineering or anything else, right? So we will call up an expert who has been in the sector for a long time, is a chemical engineer, and who's, and then they will tell us, listen, for the last 30 years, you've seen caustic soda between 50 to 100. Okay, so Sandeep, you might want to start buying caustic soda companies when the price falls closer to a 52, 53, right? And that gives us a significant edge because my experience has been that when you talk to someone who's a champion in a particular sector and he's spent 2-3 decades doing that, and our conversation with him is like getting an engineering degree or something like that. It's very, very powerful. So we have our own version of 18 to 20 experts. Some of them are Chinese wholesalers. Some of them are chemical experts in Europe. Some of them are pharmaceutical or consumer experts in the US. And we double check, cross check our thesis with these guys, tap into their experience. And that helps us not only cover the world, but dominate it in the investing field. We've done really well. And a lot of it just doesn't come from our internal team. Of course, we have a very good internal team, but I think these external checks really help us a lot.
Right, for sure.
Also, to add to what you were saying, our theme of investing in global monopolies helps us segregate companies. So when the rest of the world is looking at 3,000 companies, we are looking at 200 and we watch it like a hawk.
Yeah, we would know them really well.
Yeah.
As generational wealth, let me ask you this. How does a family in any part of the world create generational wealth?
Simple. Call us.
The way to create generational wealth, I think, goes back to our philosophy. And, I didn't have this philosophy in the first 2 years. I actually made a lot of mistakes in the first 2 years. But yeah, I think the way to do it is you buy a monopoly, you buy it in a crisis, much like today when the index is around 30%,
Right.
good quality companies are down 50%. So you buy a monopoly in a crisis and you sit on it as long as the growth in these companies are intact. And that strategy for me, I bought Facebook in 2013 and I haven't sold a single share. I think it's one of my best investments ever. So I think that's the secret formula. It becomes really difficult because identifying a monopoly is not tough. What's tough is to get away from the lure or the greed of finding a stock that can go up 300%. But if something can go up 300%, it can also fall 90% and wipe out all your wealth. Okay.
Right.
And the second thing is to have the patience to sit through it. Very often, once you've made 30%, you want to take that profit and go shopping, or something like that. But if you want to build generational wealth, I really like that name, actually. It's a good one
Thank you.
for a podcast. If you want to build generational wealth, you buy a monopoly that is growing fast and you stick with it.
Plan. Thank you guys so much for meeting today.
Thank you
Lovely
for having us.
conversation.
Yeah.
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 So
Good to be
stay
here.
tuned for Generational Wealth for more talks on wealth management. Thank you.